Mark your own. Whoop. Number one, how much momentum, magnitude, and direction? So momentum is mass times velocity. The mass is 80. The velocity is 22. I can do that in my head. 80 times 20 is going to be 1,600. Is it 1,760? That's the magnitude. Units, kilogram, meters per second. It wanted the direction. Which way? North. Often to show we're doing a direction, we do an at symbol. Then you can use an N as your brief for north. If you don't put that at symbol, that looks like newtons, and now it gets really confusing. Or you could just write the word north. I would give you a half mark for the magnitude, half mark for the direction. What change in momentum? I said, well, change in momentum is impulse. You know what? I saw a final velocity. I saw an initial velocity. I'm going to use mv final minus mv initial. What direction is v final? South. What direction is v initial? South. Is there a change in direction? I'm going to let south be positive. It's going to be 220 times 52 minus 220 times 23. And I get a magnitude of 6,380 kilogram meters per second. And the direction would be south, at south. Or you could just write the word south. What's the magnitude of the force which acts upon it? You could go F equals what, MA, and then you could find A, and if you did that, I'll give you full credit. But the fact that I just found impulse, I think I can also say that force is impulse divided by time. It's going to be 6,380 divided by 58. It's going to be 110 newtons. Direction, they didn't ask for it. They just said magnitude, but I'm pretty sure since I got a positive answer, it would also be south. Number 3, a skier lets go of a tow line. We want the magnitude of the impulse needed to bring him to rest. I think I'm going to again use mv final minus mv initial. It's going to be 80. V final is 0 to rest minus 80, 18. And I'm going to get 80 times 18, negative 1,440 kilogram meters per second. Now, because this question said magnitude, if you said positive 1,440, I'd have to give it to you because you got the size right. What's the negative telling me? If the skier is traveling forwards, what direction is the change in momentum? Backwards. They got to lose momentum to come to a stop. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Ooh, now they want me to find time. I started out again with impulse equals force times time, and I said, I guess time is impulse divided by force. It's going to be 1,440 divided by 270. Now, if you kept the negative there, you would have also, Emily, needed to say, oh, the force is also negative because it's backwards. You would have needed to put a negative there so that you get a negative divided by a negative, which is a positive because time is a scalar. It's going to be positive. Or you could have just left the negatives off. And I got 5.33 seconds. Is that correct? Then I turned the page. What impulse? Okay, now I saw east and west. I decided to let east be positive and west be negative. That made sense to me. So it's still going to be mv final minus m v initial, but it's going to be, oh, and I also crossed out the 170 and I said, nice try, Duick, 0.170 kilograms. I caught that. So it's going to be 0.17 times negative 43 minus 0.17 times positive 22. And I got negative 11.05. How am I going to translate that? Because they wanted magnitude and direction. So 11.05 kilogram meters per second at, what did I say was negative? West. If you had let west be positive, you would have got positive 11.05, and you still would have said west. Long as you're consistent throughout your whole question, you're okay. For 2 marks, I would probably give 1 mark for the magnitude and 1 mark for the direction, I suspect. What is the average force, magnitude, and direction? Okay, I just found impulse, and I also know that impulse is force times time. So it seems to me force is impulse divided by time. It's going to be negative 11.05 divided by 0.025. And I get negative 442 newtons. Is that correct? Now, what does a negative mean? Because it said magnitude and direction. To the east? West. I let west be negative, not east. So it's going to be 442 newtons west. Again, 1 mark for the magnitude, 1 mark for the answer. A baseball is thrown, you know what? I see east and west here as well. So I said I'm going to let east be positive, positive. West is negative. Ooh, that means this force is negative because that force would have been to the west because it's in the opposite direction that the ball was traveling. I've seen how a baseball and a bat work. What's the impulse? I said, okay, impulse is change in momentum. You know what? I said this time I'm going to use force times time. I'm going to use negative 20,400 times 7.5 times 10 to the negative 4. And I got negative 15.3. Is that right? What's the negative telling me? And you could have written kilogram meters per second. I'm fine with that. Because I went force times time, Sarah Ashley, I wrote Newton seconds because force times time was in my brain. But if you wrote kilogram meters per second, go ahead. What's the negative telling me? What direction was the force? West. So 15.3 newtons west. Again, 1 mark for the magnitude, 1 mark for the direction. Find the final velocity. Okay. I think I'm going to use that impulse is equal to mv final minus mv initial. And I'm going to get v final by itself. How? Well, the change in momentum would drop down like a domino. I think I would plus mv initial over and then divide by m. I think that gets v final by itself. What is the impulse? What is the change in momentum? Negative 15.3 plus, nice try with 150 grams, 0.150. V initial, 39, divided by 0.15. If I got a positive answer, I'll call that east. If I got a negative answer, I'll call that west. think I'm going to get a negative answer. Negative 15.3 plus 0.15 times 39, close off the top, divided by 0.15. Did you get negative 63? Or 63 meters per second west. For 3 marks, I would probably do something like this. I would give a half mark if I saw that. A half mark if I saw you got the V by itself. Give you a half mark for the numbers. Half mark for the magnitude. And a half mark for the direction. There's your 3 marks. Did I miss one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing a half mark somewhere, Mr. Dewick. Where would I give it? You know what? I'd probably give you 1 whole mark for the magnitude then, and a half mark for the direction. There.
But if you just back up,
Did you get right answer?
Yeah.
Did you get 3 out of 3? But if did you get right answer?
Equation VF by, so just like that.
Did you get the right answer? Yeah. Then you get 3 out of 3. Only if you don't get the right answer do you work back and look at the part marks. On a quiz, though, I always show all my work. I don't take shortcuts on a quiz because I might make a silly mistake. It's not worth it. What is the impulse, magnitude and direction, of a 2,500 kilogram truck traveling west with a constant velocity of 34 meters per second? This is a trick question. What is the impulse exactly as a number? Sadie. Yeah, why? Why is it 0? There's no change in momentum if you had a constant velocity. Right? Okay. So 1 mark for that. Can you give yourself a score on your quiz out of 15, please? If you need to lawyer with me, now is the time.